my favorite album of his is like this. He was in a band called The Ranch before he was Keith Urban. So I played one of the Ranch songs before his thing, just as, they're not going to play these songs or whatever. And
Yeah.
so when I started playing one of these old songs, his management went nuts and they're like, we need to see Rory's set list. We need like blah, blah, blah. And all this stuff's happening. I didn't realize any of it was happening until after the show. Because they were apparently supposed to play that song that night. So they screwed up his set list.
That'd be like
And
seeing a famous comic come in that's gonna bump you, and you just like on stage, you just start doing one of his bits.
yeah, I'm like the WNBA. And then we made up though. Like we're in, his dressing room after and got my feet up, ice cold drink in my hand. I'm like, Keith, dude, I was, watching you since I was a kid. Do you have any advice for an up and coming entertainer? He looks at me straight in the eye and says something I'll never forget. He's like, how did you get in here?
Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Johnny Rogers Show. I'm very excited for my guest today on the podcast. He is a musician, actor, and comedian. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Rory Gardiner.
Yay.
I love being able to edit the podcast because I can just cut out all that shit.
Yeah, you said actor. You should have gone like this, actor.
Yeah. Actor. Yeah, aren't we all though? All right. If you're a comedian, if you're an entertainer, you just try to get your hands in basically whatever you can do to get that scratch that itch.
Most actors are full of crap, but I'm definitely that. So
there you go. Good start. So did you start as a musician first and then navigate your way into comedy, or were the two always sort of competing for your attention?
no, I've been doing music probably since 1999 or something like that. And I just wanted to be like Garth Brooks. I wanted to be like faster metabolism Garth Brooks. I caught like his bug in the 90s and I was like, you know what? I want to be a country musician, but again, faster metabolism. And so I did that for like, I don't know, like 15 years. And then just country music changed. I don't know if you listen to that kind of stuff, but it's like disco now. So I just can't keep up. I'm not that talented. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll try to be funny instead. So that brought us here.
Ah, okay. So was there always like a desire to do stand-up comedy? Did you find yourself getting laughs like maybe in between songs and then that sort of like led you down that path?
It's pretty funny. I'd be doing these like theater shows and I would tell jokes in between songs. And then it got to a point where like I liked that more than the actual song. So I would try to play through it as fast as I could so I could talk again.
That's so funny.
Something's got to change here. So I
Yeah,
decided,
yeah.
like, just like probably like similar to you or anyone. Like I went to the comedy club and I'm like, all right, one of these days I'm going to do this open mic or whatever. And then for 6 years, I chickened out. I was just one day I'm going to do it. And then Absolute Comedy in Ottawa had a contest. This was like 2013. And they're like, all right, prove you're a comic competition. So I signed up. So now I was accountable. Like I was registered. I had to be there. So I prepared my 5 minutes or whatever and did not win, but I've been going up every week ever since.
Wow. Yeah. Sometimes that's all it takes, right? Like I remember like telling someone that I was going to do it. And then I felt like that's what kept me accountable to do the actual thing, is being like, hey, I'm like, there's this comedy night I'm thinking about going, and then hearing them go, you should go do that. Like, okay, now I have to, because they're going to ask me, how was it? And you want to be able to have that answer for them.
Have you heard of that analogy? It's like you're like the hardest belt to get in martial arts is the white belt. Because like once you're in it, you can get brown, green,
Yeah.
orange, yellow, whatever. But like signing up for that first class is like it could take you 20 years to do that. But
Yeah, yeah. So what is it about comedy that makes you want to stick with it more than music? Music, you saw the sort of industry changing, but what's been about comedy that's made you want to stay with it?
um, I don't know. I mean, it's validating. You get a laugh, and it's like a drug. So since I don't do synthetic drugs, the affirmation drug is probably my drug of choice. I'm
Mm.
vain is what it boils down to. And then over the pandemic, we couldn't go out and perform, so I isolated in a recording studio, and that's when I recorded like a musical comedy album of just dumb songs. So I
Nice.
kind of
Just
combined
another
them at
way to
that point.
combine it. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. Now, when I asked you about the one word for the episode, what came to mind for you?
If immediate, I didn't, the one that came immediately to mind was balance.
Balance. That's so funny that you say that because one of the questions that I was going to ask you was how do you balance? Because a lot of people that are artists, especially comedians, it's you're kind of like you're the business, right? And you don't have like an open and close hours where you just shut off from doing the business. So how do you balance those two things, life and comedy? And what does the word balance, I guess, ultimately mean to you? Like, why was that your choice?
But I didn't realize there'd be follow-up questions to the word. But I'll try my best. Yeah, no, and it is hard, like when because like people who work from home or entrepreneurs, things like they can't. It's hard to shut it off, and so you sort of need to create your own hours in order to do that. And luckily, I have children, uh, and so the fact that they are home now and they need to be fed, that is like the immediate shut off. So although it takes me a while to unwind from a day, it's like that's my excuse to kind of shut it off. If I
Hmm.
lived alone, I would be a creepy dude. I would be literally 15 hours just at a computer, like, doing stuff or creating
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
It's cool. Like it's a creative life. And in fact, I know that because I was that like a long time ago and it's not healthy. Like I think having the balance is any one way is not good. So if you're ultimately all in creatively, it's there's a limit, right? And
Yeah.
then there's a burnout, and then the other way where you're completely linear is just boring. So you really have to find that fine middle, I think.
Yeah. I said that to Oliver George when I was on his podcast. He was like, I see you like post a lot. Like, how do you post so much? And I was like, chances are, if you suddenly see me posting a lot, I'm probably neglecting something else important in my life in order to achieve that. Because people just think that like they see you doing one thing that maybe they wish they could do more of, and they just assume that every other facet of your life must also be going well. You know, if
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
hitting that one marker, and it's like not necessarily true.
No, exactly. So when you see me posting lots, I'm being an absent father. That's what I post.
Yeah, yeah,
Do you find like the more you've created a momentum, like let's say you post a lot, it's because
yeah.
now you know how to post efficiently, and
There's a
now
system set up. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly. So your
That's the
mind
thing
is
I need to
going,
do. Yeah.
you can see something and visualize exactly how you're going to present that online.
Yeah. And it also makes it so that I don't really like second guess anything. And when you have that sort of comfort, you can actually make more creative choices like in the moment. Because if you know that you're going to post something anyways, you're like, okay, but like how do I want to post it? It doesn't become so much as like the block that people have of should I post this? I'm like, well, I'm gonna post it. That's already been
Right.
done. So now I'm gonna decide like how I want it presented, what order I want to put things in. For me, I have this like great system of like a template for the podcast has already been set up. So all I have to do is plug in the video and then it's exported and done basically. And then there's AI programs that will chop up this entire episode into like 51-minute clips and rank them based on like what it thinks will do well. And I just edit those and schedule them out. And then I can just look like I'm doing all of this posting, but it's really just like an hour of work 1 day a week. And you can
Yeah, that's
set
great.
yourself up for,
It's a fantastic system.
yeah, I can't
People
do it
aren't
any other
systematized.
way.
That's the thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. You
It's
need to
just, I
like
guess, for
treat yourself like a business. Like if you had to be efficient with your time because you were getting paid a certain amount of money, how do you do it within those hours, you know?
yeah, routine's huge. Like I remember I now I suffer from the opposite end where like a video a day, and that's at the beginning of TikTok, that's what I was doing, a video a day, and that's what enabled me to grow as much as I did. But then you get to a point where it's like you start running out of creative ideas, and so now the quality suffers, but the quantity is still there, and that's like
Mm,
hard to shut off because like that in my past, and maybe you feel the same way about some of your stuff, is like the ones you didn't think would make it are the ones that go the biggest. And so
Always.
I can't not post it now because I don't know
Yeah.
for sure. I can't trust my own instinct. And so,
Yeah, that's why I always
but
post. I always post just because like there's been so many times where I'm like, man, this video, I would do these news videos, right? And I found that really hard to keep up like a daily pace of because there was so much that went into them. There was like research and cross-referencing things and then writing a script and then setting up a teleprompter to read out the script so that it's proper, then editing it all myself. And then by the time I upload it, that news is irrelevant. So
yeah, yeah,
I was like, what the fuck am I doing? So
right.
that's why I just went hard into podcasting. I'm like, let me just niche this is a podcast and I'm a comedian. And that's not try to push too much because I would like be like, this news story is so stupid. Who the hell is gonna care that, Adam 22 let his wife sleep with some dude? And then it's like the biggest video on my channel. Brings me in
Right.
hours and hours of views on YouTube, and I'm just like, well, shit. I
Yeah, yeah.
almost didn't post it, and now it's like moved. It actually moved me closer to my goal of like monetizing the channel.
It's like you created there's so many barriers in between you and the actual posting that sometimes just gets difficult. So like with TikTok, it's like instead of these high def YouTube videos and stuff like that, I could easily just take my phone out, do something stupid, and then that's it.
Yeah,
Now it's changed. It has to be all high def again. But there was a time, a good little window where you could be an
yeah.
amateur, and that's when I strived.
Yeah, where you could just like point your camera at like a cat or a dog, and it's just like a million likes or whatever. Just super simple. Or the green screen videos were huge for a minute. I think I honestly think like storytelling at some point is gonna come back. Like real storytelling, not just like I feel like right now it's a lot of reacting to things like that are insane.
That's
Just
really
like
annoying. That's
it's
like such a
very
cop
shock
out.
reaction cop outs.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What you remind me? What's that guy's name on YouTube? Ray something. The
Oh,
way
from back in the day.
you were describing your news things or whatever, like in storytelling, it reminds me of this one guy I follow. I can't remember what his name is, but he's huge on YouTube.
That
He
does
just has a
news
case
stuff.
study of like of someone. It's like this person did this, and then he goes through a whole, and he's got like animations that tell the story along with it. It's really cool to watch. But
Oh.
anywho,
I love shit like that. What I'm onto now is trying to figure out more like faceless YouTube channels because those are ideas where you could set up like multiple streams of income basically on these YouTube platforms to the point where you can then do whatever you want without thinking so much of I need to get views on this. I need to get views on this. Because in my opinion, like anything creative, you shouldn't be obsessed with like what the potential outcome is going to be. It just ruins the art. It just makes you second guess everything.
there's a quote that says you have to like be happy with what you have while in pursuit of what you want.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great quote.
So if you can separate them, like going back to the balance thing, like let's take someone like say you have a day job, for example, your day job sort of works on your fortune while your art makes your living.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So if you have a bad day at the office, then like at least your art can help you recover from that and vice versa.
And personally, I like to find like ways to make like find jobs that also allow me to sometimes also work on my creativity.
Yeah.
Like I remember I was like working at the front desk of the YMCA. It was one of my first jobs that I had. And it was so dead at certain hours, and I'm just sitting in front of a computer. I'm like, well, I could just write some jokes. I could just sit here
Yeah.
and type out some jokes and actually like get two things done at once, like be getting paid hourly and be working on a creative project.
Man, 25 years ago, I was ripping ticket stubs at the movie theater. That's when I wrote my first songs, just standing there at the at the thing, in between films or whatever. But yeah, is you got to make time, and that then on the opposite of that is like on non-creative days, like let's say you just have no ideas and you need something, right?
Hmm.
Having that job or having that income is relieving. It's like you don't have to pressure yourself into making income with your art or monetizing your art that day because
Yeah.
you have this safety net right here that kind of sometimes you can perceive your day job like people are just they poop on their day jobs because it's like, oh, I want to be a full-time artist or whatever, but like that it can be, it's like perceived adversity. I find, I don't know about you, but like when I'm going through something deep, that's when I create the most. So if you're
Yeah.
having a bad day at work, it fuels creativity somehow. I don't know what it is.
No, no, entirely. And like, especially as a comedian, you want to stay tapped into like what normal people are going through as long as you can. Because there's nothing worse than like a comedian or an artist who gets very big, very rich, and then suddenly has nothing relatable to talk about. And it's just then you start to see the comments of like, oh, they fell off, you know. And like, sure, you got lots of money, whatever, but like your art sucks because you can't relate to the general public anymore.
Right.
Ah,
Completely
take it
unrelatable.
or leave it.
No, see, no,
Some people be like, I'll take the money and fame, thanks.
it's absolutely true. I
Yeah.
remember so that again, the fall off for me, I think the catalyst was for TikTok was I was right after the pandemic that when things opened up again, I started doing cruise ships. So I'd be flying all over the world, doing these comedy shows on the ships. And so like I didn't have, it was taking up all my mental space. And so I didn't have time to create anything. So
Mm.
I would create stupid videos at airports or on boats or like, and so like, everyone's like, what is happening here? Like, why do you work at the airport now? I'm like, no,
Yeah,
it's just so much
yeah,
goddamn time. I can, and so now it's like I find it impossible to get views anymore. Like I've lost the magic or whatever I had a couple years ago. I don't
but
know.
I think your execution is like excellent because when I look at your YouTube page, I'm like, this is like exactly what you should be doing. You know what I mean? In terms of like vibrant thumbnails that are straight and to the point of like teasing titles as well that sort of hook you in.
Don't judge a
Like
book by its cover, Johnny. Okay, because
I
I can make
wouldn't
a cool
sell your
thumbnail. Doesn't mean
I
what's
wouldn't
underneath it
hey
is any
man,
good.
that's 80% of YouTube if I'm being honest. In all
Yeah,
my years of YouTube, 80% of it is the thumbnail. And then the 20% left is the first 10 seconds that hook your viewer and then from there you've got a fan or whatever. But like most people, if something doesn't grab their attention, there's so much fucking content out there that if something doesn't just grab them right away, you've lost them like
right.
immediately. And so it's like the view might not even count because I think they have to at least click on it and watch it for 15 to 20 seconds before it counts the view.
It's amazing. Some of that stuff like leaks into the other things. I remember when I was like I writing songs over the last couple of years. It's like instead of intro, verse, chorus, it's like intro, have something attention grabbing immediately. Yeah, it's
What?
audio. It's completely different. And then like now instead of a 10-second verse, it's like a 5-second verse. Just get right to it's just it's all changed. And it's
That's
those sort of
crazy.
radio stations. You listen to the radio in the car, and then like sometimes they'll literally introduce the song and play a clip of the song, the chorus of the song before they actually play the beginning of the song.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or they'll play like the instrumental in the background to sort of warm you up to it.
That's
As
they've always done that, but like I remember hearing I'll use, I don't know, use a song like Sweet Home Alabama. It's just like Sweet Home Alabama. And then the guy comes on, we're going to be listening to Sweet Home Alabama. Do you know what I mean? Like they have to
yeah,
hook
yeah,
you right
yeah,
away with
yeah.
the hook of the
Oh
song. It's so
man.
weird.
Like I promise it's not going to be another ad. Um,
Yeah.
no, but like it's also the death of albums, I think, too, with all of this like people needing to be having their attention grabbed or else they're not going to pay attention to it at all. Um, like there was something nice about someone just showing you something. Like they didn't need to grab your attention. It was just someone you trusted being like, "Hey, check out this song or listen to this album. I really like it." Like it was all referral or just radio. It would just come on and you would just hear it, you know. You weren't like actively seeking for these things. But I think with that now active seeking for things to entertain you for whatever it is the 15 seconds that you're waiting for the elevator, it was the death of albums. Like everyone just started releasing singles. If you were a musician, a lot of people were just like single after single after single because they put in an album and all the views and all the streams would be on the first two songs and then nothing on the back half of the album.
But that doesn't necessarily, I mean, I'm on both fences, side of the fence when it comes to that. It's like I can only name maybe under 10 albums that I can listen to top to bottom. And there's
So you're
been
saying albums have always
100
been
million albums released
unlistenable?
in history. So it's like so
That
singles,
is
like
true.
I get it. But like, and I love I
Yeah.
grew up reading the liner notes of everything. I love getting albums, but like let's
Yeah.
face it, most albums have 20% of good stuff and then the rest are literally B-sides. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but what that's killed, I think, is and the way the industry's gone is the star system. Like we don't like there are the top 10 artists out there right now, like that have singles out there other than maybe Taylor and Beyonce. Like I have never heard of. I know what their song is, I know what their voice sounds like, but I don't know who this person is.
Hmm. Yeah, then back
So
in the day, there was a real like pushing for an artist. You know, they were appearing on late night shows and like you were getting like more an idea of who they are. And now it's sort of just like random pe like I heard somebody was like, "Have you heard of Mabu?" And I was like, "Who the fuck is Mabu?" And they're like, "Oh, it's this hot new rapper." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." Like I'm only 32 and I'm so out of touch already. It's insane how fast it happens. You're just like, "Oh, all right." Like Kendrick
but like
Lamar is new to me and now he's like
right
considered old.
on the flip side though, it again, we're complaining, but it's a good. And you ever heard of Connor Price?
Connor Bryce is excellent. I love Connor
He is
Bryce.
excellent, right? But no one knows who he is unless you know who he is. That it's like what he's one of the biggest sellers on Spotify right now, and he's not doing arenas. Like he's so
It's crazy. It's
yeah.
crazy to me that there is like some people there is a translation, and that's what's so weird about it. They'll blow up on something and then they'll have like immediate ticket sales. And then there's just some people where it just doesn't, it's just not a connection. Like they just want to. Who did I hear say this? I think it was Grimes said this, Elon Musk's ex-wife or whatever, baby mama. She was saying that she likes making music, but she doesn't like performing live. So she's like, I'd rather just put out music and be like this digital entity than ever even think about booking a tour. She's just like, I'll make all my money online. And I'm like, you're probably going to see a lot more of those artists, like comedians who are literally just are funny online and that's it. They never go do stand up. They never do a show at all. And
But I
yeah,
think those are different kinds of art.
oh,
Like
for sure.
in
It's like
music, for example,
offshoots.
performing live and recording, I guess those are technically different as well, but it's sort of in the same pocket. But like a TikTok artist versus a stand-up comedian are completely different, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. There's a that different animal of like doing something live is you have to be good at improving things because anything could happen in those moments where if you're just solely a digital artist, it's like you control that environment. I just wonder what that's going to do to live shows. I mean, I'm sure people will still want to go out to them, but will it pull attention from those things, or do you think that live shows will just always be king?
I think ultimately people will want to go out. I mean, right now we're at the height of digital media and digital entertainment, but clubs are still packed. So I don't know.
Yeah, I honestly think like because it seems like there's so much you go online and if your algorithm is searching for like negative things, obviously it's going to feed you more negative things. So if you see like the world is collapsing around you, I feel like that's why we're seeing more of a boom for comedy because people are like, you know what? I need to go laugh. I don't want to really think about Ukraine, Russia right now.
Right.
I don't need to
That's
see
just it.
more war in my timeline.
Right. No, both I mean, you never had this much digital media being released at once, and this is probably the biggest stand-up comedy's ever been, ever.
I'm just waiting for the moment where it just
I know.
maybe I try to be an optimist. I'm like, it's gonna last forever, but I'm like, there's always like a peak of a comedy boom and then like a dead period where we're still having to like slug it out in I remember doing open mics in Toronto and even book shows in Toronto where there's like 5 people in the audience. And you're just like, all right, here's my jokes.
but that's most open mics regardless. So I just,
Yeah. But now they're getting better, is what I'm saying, is because there's such a fervor for comedy. I feel like people, like a guy that I went to school with, I messaged him saying, like, hey, I've got this great book show that I'm running. And he was like, oh, cool. Like, I can't make that one, but let me know the next one. I'm like, well, it might be an open mic the next one. So I don't want you to come to that one. I'll tell you when the next book show is. And he goes, no, it doesn't matter. Because I'll come to the open mic. I don't care. I'm like, oh, all right. And like some of the open mics in Ottawa at least are like pretty good. Like if you go to like Poor Boy and you there's like a little audience there usually for those free comedy nights, and you're like, this is actually like No Forks is another one too, where you're like, I could actually work out some material. Like this is an actual audience at an open mic.
yeah, I still don't like to invite people to those, but because I actually want to
Yeah.
work out new
Yeah, yeah,
material.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
hate I hate when like I'm, I'm about to
Yeah,
try
I'm not
new
gonna
stuff
invite him either.
and
Yeah.
then someone's like, "Oh, I'm coming to see you." I'm like, "Ugh, now I'm gonna try harder." Like it's just
Yeah. I'm not advertising my open mic shows. Yeah, for sure.
right. So it's but anyway, no, I'm just riding it. I mean, so to answer your question from 20 minutes ago, it was
Yeah.
basically I saw it was just a pivot that I thought long and hard on, that I just felt like this was the direction I wanted to go. And so that's where I headed. And it seems, I don't know, every 10 years, there is another shift in something that I want to do. So, I love the seasons of how this has all turned out so far.
That's good. Yeah, I like that, having that flexibility too. I mean, people used to be such like, uh, I'm sure you experience this in music too, where if someone was saying that they were going to try a different art form, they were like purist about it. They're like, you have to do just this thing. And it's like, I never liked or subscribed to that idea, because I feel like the more you allow yourself to breathe in other types of entertainment, the more they just like help each other. Like during the pandemic, 2020 to, well, 2022, I did that like hip hop album there because I was not wanting to go back out to do comedy clubs. I just didn't feel funny really. And I was like, the doing it in musical form and writing like rhymes and stuff to it, I started to sort of get back that like, oh, I can write like a funny bar here that is like a double entendre or whatever, and flex on those types of writing skills. And then when I went back to performing live, I started noticing that I had like beats in my jokes where I was like, I felt an actual rhythm, instead of before I felt like, okay, I've written these things, I need to just get it all out. And there wasn't really like a rhythm to it. There wasn't like pacing. There wasn't like tone in my voice.
That's interesting. I heard I'm looking up his name now. What's the British guy's name again? British comedian.
Jimmy Carr? No,
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
Irish.
I'm reading his book right now, Jimmy Carr. He talked about having I think if you tell jokes at 92 beats per second or per minute, that is the optimal for pacing
Wow.
for jokes. And so it's the way you described that is actually, it reminded me a lot of that. Because I
Interesting.
notoriously talk fast, so I
Yeah.
need to slow myself down a lot. I notice when I'm playing for like really old audiences, which I've been doing a lot of lately, I need to audibly slow down, and it's too slow for me, but for them, it's just right on the money.
Yeah. And that's the fun part too, of gauging like, okay, how fast and how slow can you go with the audience based on just like their attention. You can just see what they're paying attention to and what they're not. Like the best was before the legalization of weed, there was like a lot of pot rooms in Toronto, and the crowds were hilarious because you'd hit a punchline and then there would be like a delay before it like clicked in for them. So you'd have to like really slow your shit down, because you'd be setting up the next joke thinking, oh, that just bombed. And then a laugh would start, and you're like, wait a second. Are you guys, did you just get that? Like, is that what happened there?
I just did that on 420. It was like 3 weeks ago. I was in Lethbridge, and I was headlining the club there, and we did like an afternoon show, and exactly that. You hit a punchline, 4 or 5 seconds will go by, then they get it. Meanwhile, the night before, everyone's just like right on it immediately, right? So you can tell
Yeah.
just like, and it's the same set. Like it's just
Yeah.
one little stone.
I gotta read that book. Yeah, that sounds good. What's it
So he's
called?
like, I wasn't. I'm not a big one-linery guy. He's a one-linery guy, and so I respected him and his craft, but I've never been a big fan. But then, like now, listening to him on podcasts and reading his book, he's like a profound dude. I'm a big personal development junkie, and he's this
Mm,
his book reads like a self-help book. It's actually pretty cool, pretty
interesting.
insightful.
He's coming to Lansdowne with Jim Jeffries. I saw an ad
I
for it.
got tickets. I'm going.
Oh, nice. I
I've
was
been a
like,
big Jim Jeffries like is probably my number one or two
he's great.
comic of all time. Yeah. So I'm excited to see him.
Yeah, yeah. He's got some like legendary. What was it? I think it was his bit about like guns.
Gun
Get
control. Yeah.
gun
He goes
control. It
11
gets
minutes on gun
played,
control.
but it gets played in like schools, like in universities. Like they'll play it in like a law class or whatever, you know what I mean? Like they'll play these videos for the kids, and I'm like, that is next level, like insane. Like that's how you know you're reaching a wider audience when your bit gets used as educational material.
So I had years ago, speaking of dumb stuff that gets big, I did a TED talk and it was about like resilience, using humor to overcome adversity. And so I feel it's like a bunch of jokes, like basically laughing in the face of adversity, but they use pieces of that in PTSD conferences and like therapists use it to treat their trauma patients because it's a
Wow.
perfect example of like sublimation where you're replacing a negative situation with a positive. And I never thought like anything that I would create would be that sort of impactful for that kind of severity of circumstance.
Yeah.
And then so through all that, like humor therapy is actually practiced in healthcare. Like laughter stimulates the immune system. So it like reduces the effects of the stress hormone. So what I'm trying to
So
tell you is I'm pretty much a doctor.
yeah, I was like, so laughter is medicine. That is they were correct on that.
But yeah, Jim Jeffries is just the way I don't have, so Bill Burr's really good at it too, where he can like literally take a premise that he talks about it like in such a wrong way, but he's making a lot of fabulous points.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
and you have to be really talented to be able to do that. I don't have that kind of skill set, but these guys are where they are because of that.
And I think it's something that I certainly got confused with as well. Like you see comedians like that, like I'm sure as you start, you're watching like George Carlin or other comedians tackle these like big topics, and then as a new comedian, you're like, I'm going to tackle those big topics too, and you just don't know how to do that. And it's
Right.
because it's like, oh, they started first talking about the minutia of life and figured out how to make talking about hot dogs funny. And then they had a great hot dog bit. And then eventually they got to a point where they could talk about like culture. They could talk about like political figures. They could talk about like an idea basically and handle that, you know, like Bill Burr's bit about the WNBA. It's like, yeah, he sounds like a defense lawyer laying out the perfect case. Like,
Yeah. He does make a lot of fantastic points.
yeah.
Do you get people that like you tell them you're a comedian and then like the first question is, oh, do you get in trouble for the stuff you say? Do you find it harder these days? My answer is like I don't talk about anything controversial anyways, so no. But how about you?
Yeah, I usually say the same thing. I'm like, most of the stuff that I'm saying is not gonna make people like clutch their pearls. Maybe a little bit, but it's not like it's not gonna maybe you'll be disgusted, but like you're not gonna be like, my politics feel attacked based on what you're saying. Like I usually do a pretty good job of if I do have something that's a little political sounding, I'm kind of like tongue in cheek about it. Like sort of how like Jon Stewart was, or like even Colbert, how it's like he's presenting like conservative ideas, but you can tell that there's like a sarcasm to it, you know? Like I enjoy that type of humor. So if I do something political, it's usually in that tone.
I don't know enough about politics to create any content about it. So I
I feel like I'm obsessed. I feel like I should be talking more about it in my act, but I'm just like not there yet. I'm like I still need to do the silly bits and get those legs under that first before I can move into. You don't want to watch someone's. This is my debut hour, and the first half is about like nothing, and then the second half is just like culture and okay, now he's gonna give us his hot take on Gaza and pronouns
I think you should
in
try
the
to be like
back
authentic to
30.
yourself. Like if you're
Yeah.
really, if that's your thing, then totally go for it. Have you seen Hannah Gatsby's first special?
Yeah. Yeah. Nanette.
It's just like a lot of people poop on it because it's not comedy per se, but like it's like
Wasn't
a one woman
supposed to
show
be.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
thought it was so poignant and just so well done. And that's in itself is just a genre in itself within the realm of comedy. And
Yeah.
only she could do that. You know what I mean? Whereas I don't think Bill Burr could pull that off as talented as he is, right?
Yeah. Well, that's like the whole, like you can tell that she was influenced by the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh, right? Like that's what those shows are. They're not just straight comedy hours. They're like a lot of people doing just like a one-man show where there's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of like not funny at all moments, but it all sets up for a bigger laugh. And it's like, yeah, you can argue. Like I would say, people are like, wasn't a funny comedy special at all. I'm like, well, it was. Its intent wasn't to just make you laugh. Like you went into it with the wrong sort of like assumption of what this was. Oh, she's a comedian. She's gonna make me laugh for an hour straight. It's like, no, no, no. It was not that at all.
It's you're comparing it to like Louis C.K. You're both comedians, but you're still kind of playing different sports. It's like
Yeah,
Michael Jordan and Babe Ruth are both athletes, but they don't play the same sport.
exactly. Like I was talking to, I don't know if you know Sharif Johnson. He's like a New York City comic. He's in Raising Canaan. Jesus, fucked it up. But he was talking about he was comparing Eddie Murphy to like Cat Williams, and he's like Eddie Murphy was like a massive comedian, but like he only did two specials, and then he went into comedy movies. Still a legend, but like he's not a great comedian because a great comedian is someone like Cat Williams, where they've only done that. Like they've just been pure stand up the whole way through. And you're like, okay. But at the end of the day, I'm like, who cares? Are they both entertaining? Do they both make you laugh? Why do we need to like categorize every fucking,
I mean, it's because people do the same thing in sports, right? Like they'll break down this player versus that player and whatever the case may be, but they're
Yeah.
both way more talented than you and I will ever be or
That's why we talk
athletic. It's
about
just like
it.
why is everybody an armchair expert? Even if you're
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
the field of like why is even Cat Williams talking about other people's stuff? Like just be. You're talented, they're talented, just do your thing.
Yeah, you could just as easily go on a podcast and talk about like he could have just talked about like his personal stories without needing to be like, oh, and let me tell you about this person. Like,
I listened to that whole podcast. So that was
that's
3 hours of him crapping on
crazy.
everyone else. I listened to the whole thing. Like I was like it
Uh,
was, and I felt guilty. I was just like, should I be listening to this right
yeah,
now?
yeah,
But I mean,
yeah.
guaranteed the reason why he got a Netflix special was because of that, right? He wasn't on
They
Netflix
saw the
before.
attention. They saw the attention. It was like an indicator, like, oh, Cat is still relevant. Like, look at the views that he just brought in. And then he went on Rogan and did the same amount of views. Like it was like crazy back to back. So it's yeah, no shit. They gave him a live like comedy special. Last person they gave a live comedy special to was Chris Rock, and that was like a while ago.
And that was really well done. Like that's another situation where I really wanted to see how he handled it or what he
Yeah,
created out of it. I think he nailed it.
because that was after the slap too, right? So
Yeah,
everybody
so
was like
he completely
anticipating.
took the high road in the entire. I was just waiting for him to just put Will Smith on blast, but he did it so creatively where he literally didn't, but he still did. It was just
Yeah, you
really
wanted
well
him
done.
to be a little more Cat Williams in that moment.
Yeah, but
Let
he's a
me tell
classy
you
dude.
about
Like
this
that's what makes
motherfucker.
Chris
Yeah,
Rock like a G. You know,
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. Now, Rory, there's a question I always ask my guests. I want you to think of yourself at 15 years old.
Gross.
The reason why I gross. The reason why I say that is because it's easier to relate to yourself at that age and know the headspace that you were in. If the phone rang and it was you now, what piece of advice would you give to your younger self? Knowing it won't affect your timeline whatsoever. So it's just pure advice based off of your experience to yourself.
When you ask this to people, like, would you say it's like 95% of people say slow down, don't worry about it?
No, no. Everybody has different answers. Some people say don't marry that woman. Some
Oh,
people
okay.
say some people start Mike Wilmot just started questioning the question. You know what I mean?
Right, right, right. I
Slow
just
down.
I'm always future oriented, which is just to my detriment. It means I'm never in the present as much as I really want to, and
Mm,
so I can't. I think I have a good thing going right here, but I can't fully enjoy it because I'm always worried about what's next. And so even today, even though I know that about myself, it's still something I suffer from. So I would, the ghost of Christmas future would tell my younger self, just chill out and relax because you'll be fine.
yeah. I think that's great advice because you don't really start to feel that until you get a little bit older and like reflect on things. Like when you hit 30 and you reflect back to your 20s, you go like, oh man, that was just like you can kind of pack it all together into one experience. And you're like, oh man, I wish I had have just appreciated that a little bit more at the time instead of being so concerned with getting to just where I am now. And you
But I
know that
think
that's going to repeat itself. Like you're doing the same thing again. And then when you hit the next decade, you're going to look back at that decade and go, like, oh, fuck. Like I kept thinking of this moment.
right. But I think as long as there's growth from pursuit, I think there's progress being made, right? So
Yeah.
it's like however you track that or however a normal person would track that, I think is the way to go. For me, my tracking mechanism was like albums. So like
Mm.
I write an album in 2009. The whole content was, picking up girls at bars or whatever the heck it was. Released another album in 2013 and it was kids. Then I released a few children's albums. Then this comedy album. You know what I mean? It's like in the progress of I can now look at this wall over here and see like the progression of my adolescence to adulthood. And again, I'll use the word seasons again. Um it's basically a body of work that I can kind of look back and be proud of, or at least see progress to get where we are here.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And like there's a reason why that's built into us as humans. I don't think that you should necessarily want to get rid of that feeling of always thinking like what's the next thing that you're going to do because that's how you build stuff. Like that's how you, like you said, get yourself further than you were the day before. But I think there's a problem when we like long for those things or like when people get too nostalgic, like they'll just think too much about like where they were X amount of years ago. It's like you're living too much in the past, or you can also live too much in the future of like always planning. And then I think it's important to just center yourself back to where you are right now and realize that like you're going to hit an age where you would literally give up all of the stuff you've accumulated just to go back to where you were currently.
Yeah, what's the saying? It's like you're yeah, a billionaire or something would give up every penny just to
Oh,
be
yeah.
his 30-year-old self again or whatever
Yeah. In a heartbeat.
do you find the other thing with today is like social media and stuff like that is you're allowing yourself to compare yourself to everyone else out there. So can you be fully content with what you have, knowing that Jerry over there has got this, that, and the other thing?
Yeah. Well, I just know everybody's capping on social media. Everyone's lying. So it's like I try
True.
not to concern myself too much with what I see on social media because I'm like, all right, live your best life. Like, congrats. You know,
Right.
I just like to give people flowers instead now because I had that problem of being jealous of people before social media even existed. I would just see, my friend when I was 7 had a bigger pool than we did, and I was like, that bastard. It's like
That's such a thing to complain about. It's like
it's so stupid. You're like, why do I care? I get to swim in a bigger pool. He's my friend.
Or the fact that you're complaining about having a pool. Like, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that's the
yeah,
irony
yeah.
of the, like, it's just,
Yeah,
oh, my pool
yeah.
sucks.
My pool's that blow up one from Walmart.
Oh my God, my cottage is garbage.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's what we always do too. Like that's why I always say too, well, everyone always says, don't like money isn't gonna find you happiness because if money is what makes you happy, no matter what amount you have, you're just gonna wanna, I just need a little bit more and then I'll be happy. I got 85 million, but if I had 86 million, oof, I'd be taking breaks, you know? They always just want to increase it a little bit more, a little bit more.
Do you think that it's because they leverage themselves to their beyond their means? Do you know what I mean? Like you
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
elevate to
yeah.
the to whatever your income happens to be at that time.
That's a dangerous thing. And I started like keeping a budget, and that's where I started to notice it and was able to actually correct behavior. Cause I'm like, I made more this month, but I spent more on like this. And I have it all like individualized so then I can like consciously be like, okay, I'm gonna try to make the same amount of money, but I'm not gonna spend as much on eating out, whatever it was. Because you will do that. The more money you have, the more you'll just like burn it away.
Totally. Yeah, I think the only way to deal with that is to budget, and that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, it's very tedious, but once you set it up, like it's crazy. Like I used to smoke cigarettes and then I started vaping to get off of the cigarettes. And then I kept being like, man, this vaping is like going on for too long. I need to quit this also. So what I did was to hold myself accountable is I wrote down every time I bought like a pack of vape pods, which was like not cheap. Like it was like 18 bucks or something for like a pack of two. And I would write down every number and in a Excel sheet and it would add up. And at the end of the year, I saw how much I had spent on vape pods that year. And I was like, just threw that thing right in the fucking garbage. I was like, I'm going to save so much money next year. And now I
I
can
know I
update my
stopped
budget
drinking
sheet without it.
Starbucks a few years ago. I think I saved $30,000 or something. It's
Crazy.
pretty
It's
yeah.
crazy. Yeah. I need to do that with Tim Hortons. I gotta sever those ties.
Did you have anything else on your you have a list there you're referring to? What else did you want to jump into?
No, I was actually just checking the time there because I think we are coming up on an hour. I was gonna
Are you trying to
push
get
it.
it to land right on the hour, or do you
Yeah, yeah, that's usually what I do. I usually go straight for the hour.
well,
Um,
how many minutes are left? Because I can what we can do is we can try to time it on purpose to the exact 60 minutes.
I'm trying to remember when we started because we got on at 6:45, but I believe we didn't start till we can go to 50. So we got like a good 8 minutes left. What I want to know is I saw that you worked with Keith Urban.
Yeah.
What
So
the
in
hell was
my
that like? Tell me about that.
the end of my country music days, here's the thing: when you are ready to quit, that's when stuff starts to happen. So
Yeah.
the message here is like always be a quitter because that's when the opportunities will arise. And so I did a tour in Australia in 2016, and that's where he's from. Is his native land or whatever. But he came to Blues Fest in Ottawa, which is closer than Australia. So
Yeah.
I got to open for him there, and I've been listening to this guy forever. And so my favorite album of his is like this. He was in a band called The Ranch before he was Keith Urban. So I played one of the Ranch songs before his thing, just as they're not going to play these songs or whatever. And
Yeah.
so when I started playing one of these old songs, his management went nuts and they're like, "We need to see Rory's set list. We need like blah blah blah," and all this stuff's happening. I didn't realize any of it was happening until after the show, because they were apparently supposed to play that song that night. So they screwed up his set list.
That'd be like
And
seeing a famous comic come in, it's gonna bump you, and you just are like on stage, you just start doing one of his bits.
yeah, I'm like the WNBA. And then so we made up though. Like we're in, his dressing room after and I got my feet up, ice cold drink in my hand. I'm like, Keith, dude, I was, watching you since I was a kid. Do you have any advice for an up and coming entertainer? He looks at me straight in the eye and says something I'll never forget. He's like, "How did you get in here?"
Did he actually? Was he
No, I
like,
wasn't allowed
what
in his
the
dressing room.
fuck? Like, there's no way I was in there. Are you kidding me?
No.
That's hilarious. Did you
And then I
get to
switched to
like
comedy.
chat with him at all?
No, but he said my name on stage, which is a nice touch.
Okay. All right. That counts. That's something.
Yeah. And then the next night I played at bar mitzvah. So there's a lot of peaks and valleys in this whole entertainment game.
It can be like that. That's what I love about this fucking business. You could see someone that's like performing on the Tonight Show, and you're like, I remember when they were at this bar with like five people that weren't giving two shits about them, like not even that long ago.
Yep.
That's pretty fucking magical, if you ask me.
But I mean, I think it's those stupid bar gigs that like create whatever it is that went on the Tonight Show.
Oh yeah, that creates the magic for sure.
Hmm.
And it like just allows you to be more comfortable in what would to a normal person be like a super tense environment, right? Like you're like, holy shit, like I'm gonna be on TV, I'm seeing all this stuff. It's like I've performed in front of worse for sure. Um, right. I think this episode, because I bank episodes, I think it's gonna come out July 12th. It's a ways away.
I have time.
I was gonna say, do you have any upcoming shows in July or August that you want people to know about?
Well, let me just
Or
look at my paper calendar here and I'll let you know what we can plug in
or,
July.
or projects that you want people to check out?
Man, I intentionally took July off, so I have no shows
Would
in
you look at
July.
that? You can watch
Meanwhile,
this podcast instead.
I'm touring the goddamn country for the next 2 months, but in
Yeah, you're
July
like
I have
opening for
nothing. So
Orny Adams and like that's gonna be sick. Um, Go on Instagram, it's Rory Gardner Music. Uh, Rory Gardner on YouTube. Rory Gardner Music as well on TikTok, and go to rorygardner.com. All these links are always in the description. Dude, thanks so much for making the time even just to come on the show.
you're a cool guy, man. I appreciate chatting with you.
Yeah, it was dope. I love talking about work-life balance when it comes to comedy and balancing life because God knows I could do a lot better at it.
A lot better at it. So, how close to be the 60 minutes right now?
Oh, we got 3 more minutes to kill.
Okay, here's the thing. I know you had your sign off, but check it out. When I do these, I've been in clubs in this, mostly in the States, where it's like they have like a clock at the back of the room, and like
Yeah.
you got 60 minutes, and so you got to like look at the clock because it's counting backwards, and I always try to get it to land right on the zero on the
Oh
punchline.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
like
Just
if
cut
I'm
it
like
off.
at 3 minutes left and I have a 2 minute bit, like I'll slow it down. I'll like I talk to the crowd for a minute, and
Yeah,
then so we're just gonna just wait this out if you don't mind.
yeah. Yeah, we can do this. Did you watch David Tell's Hot Cross Buns special? It was on
Maybe.
Netflix. It's a recent one. You should go watch it because it's the special runs short. And so like he ends it and then he comes on after and he was like, hey, Netflix said that like if I don't run out the clock till like this amount of time, they're not gonna pay me. So like here's whatever this is. And it's just like a random sketch at the end of the special. But I'm like, I love that so much that he genuinely is probably what happened. He filmed short and Netflix was like, you got to do something, man. Like you got to find something to fill this time.
There you go. Well, to kill this last minute, tell me your favorite comedian and your celebrity crush.
My favorite comedian. Oh, that's a hard one. I honestly really I'm
I don't even
watching.
care. Who's your celebrity crush? Who's who
I don't have a celebrity crush if I'm being
what?
honest with
Okay,
you.
not now, but in
I
your
don't.
adolescence, everyone
Oh, in
had
my
had one.
adolescence, ooh, probably Alicia Cuthbert.
Oh God, there you go.
Yeah.
You're probably right in the age where that movie came out.
And
What's
she
that
was a
called?
popular mechanics kid.
The Girl
So
Next
that was
Door.
like
Yeah, I guess so.
literally with me throughout my whole childhood, you know what I mean?
I
And
do
then you
know
got
what you
Girl
mean.
Next Door. I do know what you mean. We're closing it out here. Hit that subscribe button, everyone. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review on Apple's and iTunes, whatever it is, and go follow Rory on everything and go see him when he has more shows in August.
I'll be there.
All right, dude. Good chatting with you.
You too.
Peace.
You've been listening to The Johnny Rogers Show. New episodes air every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.